I want to be a good person and do good things, but instead I find myself doing things that prove I'm bad and unworthy. How do I get past my fear of peace and joy? How do I truly give myself to God? So this is one of the most tragic ironies of most of our experience here on earth. I've noticed it a lot more with people from the West than people from India. There seems to be, and this is of course a massively broad overgeneralization, but nonetheless it's what I've paid attention to and seen over the 23 years I've been here, is that there seems to be in India much more of an awareness in people of the core value of who they are simply because they took birth, of that core connection to God, of the core kindness of God for them, their deservingness of God's kindness. There's, in the West, an epidemic of an internal sense of, I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm not rich enough. I'm not even on a deep level pure enough. I mean, superficially, we just get I'm not, thin enough or beautiful enough or funny enough or whatever. But it goes much deeper. I'm not worthy enough. I'm not worthy of God's love. I'm not worthy of God's connection. I'm not pure enough. I'm not good enough. I'm not divine enough. And it's tragic. It reminds me actually of a story that Jack Kornfield, a very famous Buddhist meditation teacher in America, tells of a meeting that he and some very small handful of other American Buddhist meditation teachers had with His Holiness the Dalai Lama. And one of the meditation teachers asked His Holiness, how can we help people overcome self-hatred? And it took His Holiness's translator 10 minutes to even explain semantically to His Holiness what self and hatred mean in the same word. And His Holiness's English is actually quite good. But the confusion of these two words going together literally took 10 minutes with the translator to even understand what the guy had asked. And His Holiness then said, thinking that it was some really obscure, kind of non-relevant sort of question, says to this group of teachers, well, how frequently do you find this in your students? And they all looked at each other and were like, all the time? And His Holiness then said, well, have any of you ever experienced this self-hatred? And they all went. And what I love about that story, and there are several others like that, is it helped me coming from the West, and certainly someone who experienced and struggled with feeling not enough, and struggled with self-hatred, a feeling like, oh yeah, okay, so here's an interesting cultural divide. Because there's also stories, I won't tell them all here, but there's also stories of other enlightened, amazing Eastern teachers from the Buddhist tradition, from the Hindu tradition, who have had similar types of experiences and stories with disciples, devotees, students from the West who experience this. There is something ingrained in way too many of us that because we are unworthy, and it's actually inherently unworthy. It's this sense that I have to do something to become worthy. And if I don't, I'm not worthy. Now, some of it, not to put blame on parents by any means, all parents are just doing the very best they can, but it's important to be conscious. Some of it comes in parenting styles. So we say things to our children, meaning well and meaning to just teach them some discipline, like, your room is a mess. You're a bad boy. Oh, you cleaned up your room. That's great. Your mama's good boy. Now, something as small and innocuous as cleaning a room becomes a lesson of, I am good or bad, worthy of mom's love or not worthy of mom's love. In one case, I get a spanking or certainly not a hug. In another case, I get a hug, a lap, maybe some freshly baked cookies. So I'm worthy of love based on something I've done. And whether it's a clean room, whether it's a grade in school, whether it's some other achievement or lack thereof. As parents, we give and withdraw our love based on what our children do, much more than we should. Discipline is important, of course. But it has to be, or it should be, a form of discipline in which they understand, I love you, and your room needs to be clean. Because I'm not going to wash that. Since you didn't even wear it, you just pulled it out of your closet and threw it on the floor. That's a waste of water. It's a waste of detergent. It's a waste of energy. Your room needs to be clean because then when you're looking for a sweater tomorrow, you're going to be late for school because you're not going to find your sweater under the pile of clothes. Your room needs to be clean because our minds function according to our surroundings. And when our surroundings are a mess, it tends to make our minds a little confused. So you can give them all kinds of reasons. No clean room, no dessert, no problem. But no clean room, no hugs. That's the problem. So one piece of it is parenting, but it's not only that. It's also an entire culture through advertising, through marketing, through so much of our cultural tradition that continues to ingrain in us. You're not enough. You're not good enough until and unless you buy this, wear that, do this, look like that, own this, achieve that. And so while we may not buy all the products that are advertised, we buy the message, which is who I am, isn't enough. And if we got it in our young childhood, especially if we come from a situation where we actually were abused or where we actually had parents who weren't able to give us the love that presumably they would have liked to be able to give us, parents who themselves were struggling with issues of self-love, parents with addictions, parents with other issues. We grow up feeling not worthy, because in our very first experience, we weren't worthy of love. And so what we then end up doing in life becomes much more problematic, is we end up recreating situations that allow us to live in alignment with that belief. So if I have a belief that says I'm unworthy, not good enough, I'm going to keep creating situations that prove to me that I'm not worthy. I'm not going to let myself be worthy, because as painful as it is not to feel worthy, that's a pain I know. I've been living with that for 30, 40, 60, 70 years. I know that pain. That's a pain that's part of my identity, so we're good. But the pain of actually experiencing worthiness means, oh my God, the way I've lived my whole life wasn't true. There was an alternative. There was an alternative of how to feel. There was an alternative of choices to make. And that's a really hard thing to do in our life, is to look back and realize, wow, the pattern, the drama, the story, the truth, the identity based upon which I have made all the choices that I made since I moved out of my parents' house are ones that I didn't have to make because they were made out of untruth. And that actually is much scarier for people than living with the same pain. And so we continue to recreate situations. Oh, you're just on the verge of succeeding, but you've got a pattern that says you're never going to succeed because at some point in your childhood someone said to you, you're stupid, you're worthless, you're never going to become anything. So that's your pattern? Because you had an elder sibling or cousin who was much smarter, much more productive than you were, and you were told you're never going to be like this one, he's the good one, she's the good one. That became your pattern. I'm the stupid one, I'm the lazy one, I'm the one who doesn't succeed. And so we live our lives by these. And now you're on the verge of success, and that ego voice in the mind says, wait, this is going to undo, it's going to unravel my entire sense of who I am. So as sweet as success is, it's not nearly sweet enough to unravel my entire identity and all the choices I've made throughout my life. So we keep doing it. And this is where courage is so important. What I love about courage is that the root of the word courage is the same root as the French word cœur, which means heart. And so courage is all about an open heart. And that's where it takes the courage to say, just as my parents, just as my society, just as whoever gave me this teaching was doing the best that they could, so I've done the best that I could throughout my life. I've done the best that I could with the patterns I had, the toolboxes I had. But now in this moment, in this brand new moment, this auspicious moment of a new beginning, I have a choice to do something different. I have the opportunity to actually see the truth. I have the opportunity to free myself of that pattern. And that's what we use our courage for, is to step into that unknown. What would life be like if I didn't think that I were a failure? What would life be like if I didn't think I was the stupid one or the worthless one or the lazy one? And give yourself an opportunity to find out. And it's never too late. It doesn't matter how old you are. Pujya Swamiji always says, whenever you wake up, it's morning. So whenever that moment is for you, and tonight's such a beautiful night because it's the auspicious time of Ganeshji, the God, the energy of new beginnings. Realize I'm not my pattern. There's not one cell in my body today, not one, that was abused, abandoned, betrayed, cheated, spanked. Assuming, of course, that only happened to you in childhood. There's not one cell of my body with me today to whom that happened in my childhood. Or even if it happened in my adulthood more than 7 or 8 years ago. Every single cell of the body sloughs and regenerates within 7 or 8 years. The skin cells, which are usually the ones that actually get physically injured if we've been physically injured, they slough off every few days. So who's the you who isn't worthy? Who's the you who was abused or abandoned or betrayed or told you're stupid? Where is that you? Doesn't exist. There was a child to whom these things happened. Allow yourself to feel compassion and love for that child, but to recognize that isn't you. There's not one cell of your body today that was there. So allow yourself to walk into a new way of being based on the real truth of who you are, which is divinity. Divinity inside. We are created not just by the Creator, but of the Creator. Which means that all of the properties of the divine Creator are the properties of us. Purity, light, peace, bliss, divinity. That's who we are at our core. Allow yourself to know that. And just keep walking, one foot in front of the other, every day. And you'll get there. You could get there tonight.